How's it going, guys? So in today's tutorial, I'm going to show you how to make this really cool text animation. But before I get into that, today's video is brought to you by the Material Builder suite. The Material Builder takes all the time out of creating unique, complex procedural materials. With over 100 group nodes ranging from custom patterns and textures you've never seen before to special nodes that give your materials sand, glitter, and many other really cool effects. Using a plug-and-play workflow, you can make hundreds of unique materials made for cycles. Hit the link in my description if you want to learn more. Now let's get back into the tutorial. All right, we're back. So let's go ahead and start making this really cool piece. It's pretty cool, interesting optical illusion. We're going to jump straight into doing that. Now, for this text, I made it in Photoshop, but I know a lot of Blender users don't have Adobe stuff, so we're going to actually make that here in Blender. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift A, and we're going to go and get some text. So we're going to go here, text, and then I like to go ahead, hit the little A down here on alignment, click center, and click center. So I'm going to go ahead and type in whatever I want. So I'm going to go caps O-K-A-Y. I love caps. Now what you can do next is click on font here in the little text section, and then click this file, and it should bring up a dialog of all your fonts. If it doesn't, then you can go ahead and just go download one and put it on your desktop and navigate to it. So I want to pick a really nice bold one. So we're going to go ahead and say nice bold italic one. My recommendation is bold texts would do the best for you. Now I'm going to hit the tilde key, which is right above the tab key for me, and I'm going to click top. Now I'm going to hit Shift A and grab in my camera, and then I'm going to go click this little icon and bring my camera up. Now we want this text to look as flat as possible, so make sure you click on your camera, click on the little green camera here, and I'm going to give my focal length 100. What that's going to do is add no fisheye effects that would happen in a lens. So I'm going to hit G and then middle click on my mouse and bring it in. I want this to be a square because that's how my UV mapping would work the best with. So I'm going to go with 1200 by 1200 on my pixel size here. So 1200. If you don't know where to do that, click on the printer icon and then put that in there. So now we have this. I like the size of it. We're going to go ahead and then click on the view here. Make sure you're in Eevee. So you'll click on the little camera icon and click Eevee. Now turn off bloom and all this stuff. We just want it to be a flat image. I'm gonna click my world, bring it down to black, click on my text, click on the materials, new, and we're gonna go with emission. And then I'm gonna make my strength 100. I want to just be pure, perfect white. So now we have this, practically looks just like you would make it in Photoshop. And I'm gonna click the render button, brings it up really quickly, and I'm going to save my image here for tut. I put UTU, TUT, and then I'm gonna save it on my desktop just like this. And now we have our image. Now, if you have Photoshop, much quicker to do it that way if you'd like. So now we're gonna go ahead and get a new file here, and let's start making our primitive objects. So I'm gonna hit Shift A, go to mesh here, and I'm gonna click on a cube, and I wanna make some little planks. So I'm gonna click on the little scale tool here, and then I'm gonna bring it just like that, and then bring my scale in just like this. Let's see, kind of make it like that. And then I'm gonna hit Control A, apply scale. Now everything needs to have a bevel modifier. So click on your modifiers, click bevel, and then click on this amount here. And I'm just gonna bring in something like this. The reason why we're beveling is because when we actually map this texture onto everything, we want it to be a smooth surface because that will look the best. So now we have this guy, maybe bring him up like that. And I'm gonna move him over here. We're gonna go ahead and get an icosphere. And then we're gonna go and then just click on the subdivisions till it's nice and smooth. I'm gonna scale it down a little bit here. I'm gonna hit G to move it away. And then I'm gonna go ahead and also get a cylinder. On vertices, I'm gonna get it 85, click that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and scale them up a little bit. Add modifier, bevel, and make sure limit method is on angle here on your bevel modifier. And then we're gonna bring it in like that. And of course, give it some segments, right click, shade smooth. So now I'm gonna make him nice and small too to go match with the rest of the primitives here. Control A, apply scale. And so now we have our primitive objects that are gonna sort of make up this whole scene here. So we need to make them rigid bodies so they kind of go to the middle without intersecting. So I'm gonna go ahead and give them their correct rigid body settings. We're gonna go here, and then we're gonna click on this little circular thing, click rigid body, and make sure we have right over here, sphere. So you're going to have to make sure your objects, when you click on the rigid bodies, that your shape is correct to the cylinder. Now, if you have like a different kind of shape like Suzanne, the monkey head, or anything else, you would want to go here and click on mesh and it'll map it. It'll be buggy sometimes, but you should get pretty good if you're, working with more complex shapes rather than the primitive ones. I'm going to click on this rigid body and we're going to use a box and it'll map it even though the box is kind of stretched and moved. So now we need to actually tell these guys where to go. I do want to go here and turn off gravity. I'm gonna hit Shift A and get in a force field and get force. In the force field settings right down here, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a -1000. So that'll drag them in toward the force field and we can press play. Make sure you go back to the beginning of your timeline. And this is just a test that, yes, this does in fact work. So we're gonna go ahead now and start duplicating some of these objects. So I'm gonna go here, here, here. So I'm going to click this here and Shift D, kind of move it around, Shift D, just a bunch of them. And then we're going to go ahead and get this guy and get a bunch of these barrels like that. Now, when we press play, they'll all come into the scene, crash into each other, and we'll get something pretty cool, just like this. So now I'm going to go ahead and try to pick like what looks the coolest in terms of whatever. So you can go ahead, I'm gonna hit the tilde key again. Actually, right looks really nice. So we're gonna go ahead with the right side. Now, if we go back to the beginning of our timeline, all these objects are gonna go back to where they started. We wanna have the scene stay right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and highlight all these, hit F3, and we're gonna look up Apply Visual Transform. So right here, Apply Visual Transform. And then now these objects are going to start here and they'll remain as rigid bodies. So we'll go ahead and just delete this force field so they just stay like regular objects. And now all our objects are staying the way we want. So I'm going to go here back to the right side, highlight all of these guys. I'm going to hit Tab to go into edit mode. So I have to not work in here. Let's go Tab. Here we go. Edit mode. And then hit U and then project from view. So what that's going to do is if we go here to the UV projection, we have all these guys. And then I'm going to go ahead and click and just scale them up to fit the little cube. Now I'm going to go ahead and click Open, Desktop. And let's pick the OK that we did. And then now we have, you can see the text is right back there. So now we can go straight into shading. So I'm going to click on the shading tab here. And then I'm going to hit the tilde key, go to the right. We'll add our camera in just a second. So now we have all this. We're going to go ahead and click New. And then just to show you the base color here, we're going to click, we have this one piece right here, this one object clicked. So what we're going to do is click the object with the material, hit A, Control L, Materials. And that's going to add that material to everything, which is super, super important. So if you have the Node Wrangler add-on enabled, if you don't, just go to your preferences, add-ons, and look up Node Wrangler, and then enable that. I'm going to hit Control T. So what that's going to do is give me an image texture, a mapping, and a texture coordinate, and make sure UV is selected. I'm going to go ahead and open Desktop, and all of a sudden we have our text mapped to our scene in a really, really cool way. So now we can go ahead and shade this a little bit. So we're going to detach that. And this is just going to be used as a mask. And we're going to go ahead and make this metallic. Bring that here. We're going to get a mix shader. I'm going to make a material that I've made several times here on the channel. That's not the node we want. We want a mix RGB. I make that mistake all the time. All right, now we're going to get an emission EM in our search. And we'll plug that into the shader. We'll go ahead and get the color of the text here. Now it's mapping. Now if it's inverted, kind of like this on your scene, like that, and you don't want that, just make sure you flip it so that the principled is on top. Just a note in case that messed up for you. Now we're going to go ahead and make this piece here. So I'm going to go get a color ramp, plug it into the roughness. Then I'm going to get in a mix RGB because we're going to add two textures now. We're going to get a Voronoi, and we're going to get a Musgrave. So we're going to add a really cool grunge material here. I'm going to hit Control T on the Voronoi texture and get the object coordinate. And then we're going to get the vector down here. Now let's plug these two textures. So we'll put the color into color 1 and the height into color 2. And then we'll plug that into the color ramp. So I'm going to bring the factor over here so we can focus on the Musgrave. Bring your dimension to 0. Detail up on the color ramp, on the black portion of the color ramp. Bring it closer to a gray so that our color works really nicely. I'm going to bring my factor back to 0. So now we're just seeing the Voronoi. I'm going to go from this to Manhattan. Bring my scale up, something like this. And then what we'll do is we'll bring that factor in. And now we have a really cool material. And then what we need to do is hit Shift A, search bump. We'll get a bump node here. Plug that into the normal. And then we'll plug in the color into the height of the bump. And then now we have this really nice, really cool material. We do need to edit the emission a little bit. So I'm going to highlight all of these guys. Hit G to bring it down. Bring it over here. I'm going to go to the render view. And then I'm going to put a color ramp right here. So COL, color ramp, plug that into the color. I'm going to go ahead and pick the color that I want. So it's kind of a blue here. And then we'll play with the strength. That's pretty cool. Just a note, if you click on the render properties here at the camera, make sure ambient occlusion, bloom, screen space reflections, and motion blur are turned on. So I'm going to hit Shift A again and get in a layer weight. The layer weight is going to add some nice shading to this OKAY so that it looks like it's 3D rather than just flat. So I'm going to use the facing tab here. And then you can see it's kind of doing its magic a little bit. You can even use Fresnel if you like the way Fresnel looks. But it all just chalks up to preference here. I like the way facing looks. And then I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to hit the tilde key here to go to the right. And then I'm going to go from linear to B-spline so we get a more smooth shading here. And sometimes it's hard to tell, but we do get a little bit better difference on the shading, and you can kind of maintain that really nice look. And then you can also play with the blend here to mess with that as well. So all just stuff that you like. So now we can go ahead and get our camera and start animating this whole situation. So I'm going to go at Shift A and get in a camera. I'm also going to get in a curve circle, and that's really, really important. So we're going to go here to the camera, and we're going to go to constraints right over here, add object constraint, follow path, and we're going to select that circle. So now if we scale this thing up, we'll go to the circle. Now click back on the camera, go to the constraints, make sure you're using follow curve so that when you hit the offset slider, this thing it's animating correctly. And then I think for me, it's -Y. If you click some of them, it's different depending on your scene. I click -Y so that when he goes around the scene, he'll be facing what I want him to face. So I'm going to click on my camera here and then scale up my scene. I want my camera here, if we go to the settings, and give it a focal length of 85 so that it's nice and flat. And then we'll need to go ahead and scale that again. So let's go back, click on the camera, and we need to go ahead and look at this thing so that the offset is correct. So we need to go over here until it's correct. So we need to just sort of eyeball this like that, something like this. So now we can kind of see what's happening. It spells OKAY. It doesn't need to be perfect because once we get to that 85mm lens, there is going to be some distortion, but it's just a cool optical illusion, so that's okay. Now we can go ahead and start animating this. I'm going to go here and click on viewport right here, material preview, so we can see what's happening. I'm going to click on my Bezier circle right here, and I'm going to rotate it like this so it just looks like the these objects are rotating, but we're rotating the circle. And then I'm going to click on my camera and rotate it back. So now what we're going to do is a really cool animation. So I'm using this Bezier circle as a tracking method for the camera. So I'm going to bring my offset something like this. Now we're going to start animating. So go to Edit, preferences, and make sure your default interpolation here on animation is on Bezier. That's really important. So what we're going to do is we're going to start animating this guy. So here on the offset, I'm going to click this, and I'm press play and just sort of wait however long I want my animation to be, something like that. But that's always, we can always change that. And then I'm going to bring my offset back to where it spells okay. So something like this. And then we'll click that, and now we can see how do we feel about this animation. Feel pretty good. And then what I'm going to do now is go over here to animation and edit that a little bit. So we're going to make this look really, really cool. So go to the rendered view, and then over here, go to the graph editor, and I'm going to bring this over like that. So if we press play here, we can see it's animating pretty nicely, but we can make it look better. So I'm going to click on camera, offset, and follow path here. Now I'm going to click this here and just sort of drag that up so we can see our keyframes. Just got to try to find them. And then for me, I'm going to take this little cursor, this little guy right here, and bring it in like this. And what that's going to do is edit the Bezier keyframe. So when we press play, it speeds up and slows down. So it gives you that kind of much quicker animation in the beginning and then slows it down really smoothly. So we go back. So that's what we're looking for. Now we can go back here to layout and animate our focal length. We'll go back here, click on the camera, click on the little green camera here. So we'll zoom it all the way in like this. And then we'll click on the keyframe, and then we'll go to the end. And then we'll bring our back to 85. And so now when we press play, if we check out the animation, we have this really nice thing. Now it's pretty dramatic. I would make the focal length a little bit better, but you kind of get the idea here. So pretty nice animation. Now I would go ahead and tweak it and smooth it out and make it a little bit better. But that's all up to you and your preference. Now what we need to do here is edit the lights to make them blink on. So I want this emission here to kind of flash on. So what I'm going to do is click on this, go here to my shading, and then we need to play with this emission node right here. So I'm going to bring this down a timeline. So we'll click this, click on timeline. Now we have that. So our strength, will make it our strength of 10. So we can just try to remember that number. So I'm going to start my strength at 0. So keep my strength at 0 here, insert keyframe, and then say have my animation blink on maybe at like frame 14. So do that, right click, insert keyframe. If you click on the emission node, you can see those keyframes. So now we can kind of see, comes on like that. And then where do I want the animation to blink off? Right there. So insert keyframe, go down, strength of 0, insert keyframe. So now it'll go away. So I'm going to have my animation stop at frame 100. So right here on end, 100 frames. Now we can go back here into the animation tab and edit that a little bit. So what we're going to do, we can see the light turns on at frame 1 and stops at frame 14. So we'll click down here, shader node tree, click on this. So what we'll do is we'll go here to modifiers, add modifier, add noise, and then we'll bring this all the way up so it does this here. So we want to restrict the noise texture, not noise texture, the noise here. So it stops at frame 14. So we'll click restrict frame range, start at frame 0, end at frame 14. And so now what we can do is we can play with the strength here, and it does that. So now it strobes and flashes on, as you can see. Cool. And then now we need to do it for the end. So we'll add modifier, add another noise, restrict frame range, start it at 79, frame 79 here, and then we'll end it at 94. So 94, like that. And then here we can play with the strength again, so it blinks off. like that. So now we have that. Last thing we need to do is worry about lighting, but let's go ahead and just check that animation. Blinks on, blinks off. Pretty cool. So now we just need to go ahead and light this thing. So I'm going to go here to my world settings, bring my color down to black, and then I'll stop here. So Shift A, light, area light, hit G to bring it up. I'm going to go ahead and bring all my gizmos and stuff back in. So I'm going to go ahead and bring my light back here to the back corner so we can have a nice key light. I'm going to hit R twice to move it. I'm going to hit S to scale it up. So now we have that light right there. And then I'm going to give it like a strength of 5,000. Give it nice and bright. Make it nice and blue. And then I'd say 5,000 might be too much, so 3,000, something like that. And then I'm going to go ahead and hit Shift D on this light, bring it over here. I'm hitting G to move it around like this. I'm going to hit R twice. And then I'm going to scale it up a little bit. Actually, you know what? I wanted to bring it here on the perfectly right here on the side. Bring it right there. Maybe bring it up. Cool. Now he's pointing there. And then we'll check out the view. Now, this one's really blue, so I want to make the second light lighter blue. So we'll click here, go to HSV, and then bring it something like that, and also give it a power of like 1,000. Cool. And now our animation is finished. You've made a really cool, really nice text intro or animation or whatever you want to call it. So there you go. That's how you do it. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you learned some stuff, and be sure to hit the link in the description and check out the material builder.